And now let's finally move on to the most interesting part, sponsored products. Placement of ads for sponsored products campaigns. This is the most interesting topic because there are the most options here. Also, sponsored products generate the highest number of sales, so optimizing and growing them is important. By working with sponsored products, we solve about 70 to 80% of the placement issue. So, if we look at the placements shown here on the mind map, everything seems pretty straightforward. We have search results and product results. It all seems simple enough, but actually, search results and product pages, that's basically the entire range of placements available in sponsored products. So ads can appear anywhere. Since they can show up anywhere, it means they'll most likely be competing everywhere as well. The placements we see, that is, the ad spots available when creating campaigns, are pretty straightforward. There's top of search, and on desktop, we see the top row. A year or two ago, Amazon was experimenting, and instead of showing four top of search ads on desktop, they showed five or six. But then Amazon went back to four ads. Now we see that there are already five. If before, the fifth spot on a widescreen was often organic, now Amazon uses that spot for sponsored products, and organic results start from the second row. This is one of the current changes. So we see the top of search. Below the video ads, we start seeing rest of search ads. We have some very controversial blocks like trending now, 4 stars and above, which appear in the search results as well as frequently bought together. And while on desktop, this is a row of 5 ad listings, on a smartphone, it's actually a carousel where two products are fully visible, the third is partially visible, and you have to swipe to see more. And in this carousel on a smartphone, it really makes sense to get into the first two spots. The same situation applies to top of search on smartphones. As we discussed in previous videos, very often the first 2 or 3 ads, usually two, are in the top of search. Then there's a break for organic results, and after that, the lower part of top of search continues. So while on desktop there isn't such a big difference in performance, on smartphones there's a huge difference in performance between the first, second, third, fourth, or fifth spot. And that's why it might seem unclear why it matters whether we're in first, second, or third place in the ads, but it's specifically because of smartphones that we see such a difference in performance. Next, we see our carousel. In this case, is the Trending Now section. I consider this a separate placement. A lot of people say that this is rest of search. I've also heard the opinion that this is top of search. I believe this is an independent placement that takes impressions both from top of search and from rest of search, so it's mixed here. We know that we can never see the same ASIN at the top and in the rest at the same time. In other words, in the search results, we only get one impression. But in this carousel, our products are duplicated both from the top and from the rest. For example, here we see this double striped pillow. And the double pillow, we can see, appears more from the top in this carousel. As we can see, there's absolutely nothing appearing from the top section here. However, if we take a moment to scroll down further to the rest of the page, if we scroll down to the rest of the results, I'm quite sure we'll also find various pillows that are being specifically advertised in the rest of search section, and we can clearly see them appearing right here in this same product carousel. So this is a separate, distinct type of placement that can appear both at the top and in the rest. This is one of those new features. Now look, an ASIN in a single ad campaign can show up either at the top or in the rest. If we create a second campaign and want to show the same ASIN in the rest with that second campaign, it's not possible. Amazon won't allow it. The campaigns will compete with each other, and we'll see impressions and clicks and possibly orders in both places. But this means that the campaigns work one after another. We can't get both at the same time. In the same way, unfortunately, Amazon doesn't allow variations either. Showing several variations at the same time at the top in the rest on the American market doesn't happen, but it does in Europe. Maybe in some categories it's possible too, but that needs to be checked. Amazon started allowing this on the American market, but this opportunity is really only found in Europe. We have a very limited number of ad spots, which leads to huge competition. Amazon wants to get advertising money from as many advertisers as possible. This explains why there are so few opportunities to get onto the small first page or the small top of search. This trending now carousel, 4 stars and above, is exactly what allows Amazon to increase the number of ad spots, charge extra money, and do it in pretty high positions. We're seeing the top expand, we're seeing a new carousel that's collecting clicks and impressions. Our ads can also appear here, and everything below that relates to sponsored products. Now we have rest of search, and there's still a third placement available to us. That's the product page. The product page is made up of carousels, product related to this item, 4 stars and above. We also have ads that show up in customers also bought or frequently bought together. Ads also appear here, you see, ads on the product page, and there are quite a lot of ad carousels. So basically, anywhere we have sponsored products ads, it turns out that an automatic campaign can show up anywhere. But it turns out that if an automatic campaign can show up everywhere, it can interfere with all our existing campaigns, category campaigns, phrase broad campaigns, and exact campaigns. So on one hand, it's universal, but on the other hand, it can get in the way of everything and overlap with all other campaigns in terms of ad placements. Let's take a closer look at just how universal this automatic advertising is and where exactly it can show up. In our advertising, there are 4 targets in automatic campaigns: loose, close, subs, and complement. Close and loose are search ads based on search queries. Subs and complement are ads that appear on competitors' pages, on the product page, or at least that's where they're supposed to be. But since Amazon wants to maximize its spending, it turns out that close and loose also show up on the product page, not just at the top and in the rest. And subs and complement also appear at the top and in the rest, not just on the product page. So they overlap and don't really serve their intended function. So if automatic ads are supposed to trigger on search and for relevant keywords, in reality, they can also, at Amazon's discretion, show up on any competitor's page, on the product page, or on a listing. And previously, Amazon followed the rule that for a product targeting campaign to appear in the search results, either at the top or in the rest, the customer had to start their journey from the product where we were advertising. But now, Amazon has made this easier, so they can charge us as much as possible, regardless of whether the ASIN we targeted was actually visited or not. ASI and targeting ads are now shown at the top and in the rest of the search results, meaning they can compete with close and loose match types. It's a pretty unpleasant situation. It turns out that targets meant to focus on showing ads and search results are now being displayed on competitors' pages. And targets like subs and complement, which are supposed to be shown on competitors' pages, are now also being displayed in the search results. So it turns out that all 4 advertising targets are competing with each other for impressions. In other words, they're all getting each other's way. And since our controls over automatic advertising are quite limited, it's hard for us to prevent this, usually, unless we isolate the placements. If all the targets are mixed together, it's pretty difficult to manage them or push certain placements because it's impossible to tell which search term is coming from where. Of course, we can look at center, performance, impressions, but overall, Amazon doesn't give us 100% certainty to really understand where everything's coming from. So the targets should work separately. How to avoid these overlaps, how to properly get these placements, and for which ad campaigns, we'll discuss all that in the second part. But for now, at least, it's important to understand what's being shown where. And an automatic ad campaign, which seems very simple, makes us think it's all easy. You'll launch it, add negatives, and pull out the high performing keywords. Automatic ads are super effective, very easy to manage, they run great and bring in money. But in reality, it's a mess. And Amazon uses this mess to maximize our spend while giving us the bare minimum of statistics so we can't figure out how to add negatives, we can't scale, and we're forced to work only under high spend conditions, which is Amazon's KPI. They need to push our spend as much as possible. They need to make us spend as much as possible. And automatic advertising actually requires maximum attention because any of the targets from automatic ads can easily show up both in search results and on product pages. And having a large number of auto campaigns and a large number of products in automatic campaigns leads to complete overlap. Plus, they overlap with the same broad, phrase, and exact campaigns. And often, when an exact campaign or a broad or phrase stops, it's simply because it overlaps with another one. We adjusted the bid in the auto campaign, and by doing that, we turned off our broad or exact campaign. And it's important to understand this. So, if our manual campaigns can show up in the same spots and automatic campaigns are also showing up in those exact same spots, we end up with pretty significant internal competition. And this competition always happens under the condition that we get minimal statistics on search terms, on the actual user queries. You need to avoid this as much as possible. There shouldn't be competition for ad placements, and the placements for different campaigns shouldn't be mixed together.